Hello, this is Craig Mertens, Director of Product Education for Inktovo, the parent company of GraphicsFlow, Inksoft, Printavo, and now SignTracker. So SignTracker has been a blast for me getting back to my roots in the sign making industry. I work very closely with the founder, Joe Arnella, and we're tag teaming on some educational content. So you'll see more about SignTracker in the future. And think of SignTracker as the shop management side of our tech stack for the sign making industry. So Printavo, shop management for apparel decoration, Inksoft, e-commerce platform for apparel decoration and promotional products and signage, and GraphicsFlow, our graphics platform, and now SignTracker, our shop management solution for sign making. So that's how the ecosystem all fits together. So thank you for joining me today on our webinar series. What we're going to talk about today is customizing graphics. And one of the things that I want to do is compare and contrast traditional methods using CorelDRAW and Adobe Illustrator to edit graphics versus using the integrated graphics tools for editing graphics that are built right into GraphicsFlow. So with that being said, I'm going to turn off the webcam and share my screen here. So let's share the screen. So I am logged into my GraphicsFlow account. And the first thing that you are accustomed to seeing when you log into GraphicsFlow is design ideas. And just a little trick, Windows trick, you can do this on Mac too. If you hold down your scroll button and your control key at the same time, I don't know if you guys knew you could adjust your zoom level in any web browser. I'm not sure what the exact keyboard shortcut is on a Mac, but you can do precisely the same thing. And as I get older, I notice I like having things be a little bit bigger. That is my sweet spot right there. And incidentally, if you click on a graphic, you always also get the full screen preview. So if I click on this graphic, I get the full screen preview. So the first thing that you'll typically see when you log into GraphicsFlow is that design ideas. And GraphicsFlow being a content delivery system, we have three basic components to that content. We have design ideas, we have clip art, I like to call production ready clip art, and we have fonts. And let's start out with fonts for a second. We've been building fonts for a very long time. If you go back to the old Digital Art Solutions days, we had a set of about 144 core fonts. And since those times, and when we rebranded and relaunched as GraphicsFlow, we're up to 560 fonts now. So where do those fonts come from and how do you access them? Couple things. Number one, when we have clicked on the word fonts, I can go over here, and if I want to look for a specific font like American Captain, which is the Captain America font, I can just do a quick little search and go over here. And if I want to download that font individually, I can just go over here, click on the little three dots and click on download. Or if maybe I want to add it to an art approval to show customers a couple ideas for different fonts they could use for their project, I can do that. But one of the very important things to do in GraphicsFlow, especially when you first subscribe, is to download and install all the fonts. And it's a fairly easy thing to do, but let's actually go through it and show you how we would do this. And this will work both the same on a Mac or Windows computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on download all fonts, and I'm going to download a zip file into my downloads folder with all of the fonts. And this gets updated periodically. So we did a font drop last year. We added about 150 new fonts. We're going to add probably about 150 new fonts this year as well. And so the thing that I recommend doing is installing the font set again, but just excluding the fonts that are previously installed. And in both in Windows and Mac, if you install fonts, it will give you a message that says, this font is already installed. Do you want to overwrite the font? And you're going to say no to that because you don't need to. So I'm going to go to my downloads folder here real quick. And we're going to select that download file. And I'm going to right click on it. And I'm going to select extract all. On a Mac computer, this will happen automatically. On Windows, it's just a little right click. And so what I'm doing is extracting all of the fonts. So they're no longer within the zip file formatted zip file. And you'll notice there's an adjacent file folder here that is the extracted version, which means I can right click on the original one and I'm in Windows 11 now, just hit delete. So this is the one I'm interested in. And I'm going to double click on that font. And in that folder, you're going to notice there is a whole giant selection of fonts. And if I want to install these fonts, what I need to do is right click on them and hit install. And so what I want to do is install two different formats. One is an OTF format, and the other one is a TTF format that stands for TrueType. And in order to do that, I don't want to have to go into each one of these individual folders because everything is segregated by style in folders. All I really need to do in Windows is I go over here and type in *.ttf, and that will find all the TrueType fonts, and there's 439 of them. Then I can simply click on Control A to select all, and then right click and hit install. Now, when I click install, it'll say, hey, these fonts are already installed. Do you want to replace them? And I definitely don't want to do that because these are already installed. So in my particular situation, because all these fonts are already installed, I don't need to have to install them again. So I'm just going to say no. But in your situation, you might have 3/4 of them installed already. And the only ones that aren't installed are the brand new 150 new fonts. In that case, you would still say no. And the only fonts that would get installed are the new ones. So that's a really important thing to do. In Mac, it's a little easier. You can just drag and drop the font folder into your font suitcase, and they'll just install automatically and just follow the prompts on your screen. So I'm going to say no because we don't need to install anything because we've got all these already installed. So it's just going and checking them all. And that's why it's going so fast. It's just checking to see if they're installed or not. And that's how you do it. Now, the second part of this is going and installing the other file format, which is open type fonts, which is actually a little bit more modern format. And I would do exactly the same thing, *.otf, hit enter, and it'll find all 120 OTF fonts. This is a different font format. Some of the newer fonts are OTF formatted. And incidentally, that trick I'm showing you, the *dot, you can do that for any font format in Windows, or by installing the fonts. They're now available to you in every program that works with TrueType and OpenType fonts on your unique operating system. So if you're on Mac and you're using Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, they'll be available for you in those programs. Or if you're on Windows and you're using CorelDRAW, or maybe you're using a sign making program as well, such as, a good example would be SignLab or FlexiSign, those fonts will be available in all of your graphics programs. And incidentally, they'll be available in Microsoft Word and Excel and any program that has fonts installed into it. So just be aware of that. There is another way to install fonts. If you're using CorelDRAW, you can install them through the Corel Font Manager. That gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of turning them on and turning them off, but that's a whole nother class. And go to YouTube and read up on the Corel Font Manager to see how that works. So we've got our fonts installed. What that means is if I go and download a design idea in the Corel format, or in the Illustrator format, I won't receive a message that says the font is missing. So if I don't install the fonts and I'm an Illustrator user, I will get a font substitution message when I try to open that file up in Adobe Illustrator. Now in CorelDRAW, I won't receive the font substitution message because the CorelDRAW format enables me to embed fonts. So even if the font was not installed on the operating system, it would still open with the correct font. But you'd notice in the font list in CorelDRAW, you'd have an asterisk next to it that says, which is just simply indicating that the font's not installed, it's embedded. So in general, you want those fonts installed so you don't have missing fonts. And also if they're installed, if you just want to create something with that font, you can create it. Something interesting to notate is if you are using Inksoft and you're using the Inksoft Designer, a large portion of the fonts in GraphicsFlow are also in Inksoft. And any font that starts with DAS is also in Inksoft. So what you can do is if you download this file right here and download it as a PDF, import it into Inksoft, and you can go and reset the type so you can make that type editable in the Inksoft Designer. We've got design ideas and we have clip art. So what makes our clip art unique or different? That's a great question. This is production ready clip art, meaning it's already spot color separated for screen printing. It doesn't have excessive drawing nodes. All the colors are stacked in layers, and it makes it very easy for you to edit those files. So why did we do it that way? Because if we didn't do it that way, you'd be calling us up or submitting a tech support request saying, hey, I'm trying to color this file for screen printing, but it's got 107 colors in it. How do I reduce it down to 3 for screen printing? Or I'm trying to cut this file in vinyl, and I notice all these objects are sitting on top of each other, and I can't possibly do that. So we create the files so that they'll work in the variety of production process. So they're easy to color. They have spot colors built into them, so they're already pre-color separated for screen printing. But more importantly, they look like they belong on a t-shirt. So if I click on that graphic is set up in layers. I don't have to bring it into Corel or Illustrator or any other editing program to recolor it. I can do that right directly in GraphicsFlow. And you'll notice there's two little icons here. One says customize right here, and the other one says customize right here. I can click on either one. And if I just want to recolor this just to get an idea what it's going to look like prior to downloading it, I can do that. So I can go over here to the pink and click on the pink, and let's see, we'll make that a hot pink. It's kind of a fun color. There we go. And we'll go over here to this kind of aqua color. We'll make that a bright purple. And then the green color, I think it needs to be more along the lines of maybe more of a lime green, something pretty bright. This will be kind of fun. Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. Now we're back into the 90s with all those fun, bright colors. So I don't have to bring this file into Adobe Illustrator, Corel, any other vector-based graphics program. I can do the basic color editing right here. And something that's new that you probably haven't seen before is you have the ability to have a light or dark preview. And where that's handy is if you want to see if there's actually white in the graphic. Now I can clearly see there's white as a color layer in the graphic just by turning on that background. I can also see that because the colors in use displays white. And if I didn't want that white to be white, we could certainly go in and make it a different color like cream if we wanted to. There we go. That looks pretty good, actually. So how do I get this file into my computer and set up for production? That's a great question. And the first thing you want to do with the file is you want to save it. So once I've got it colored and I want to get that file set up for production, what I'm going to simply do is click on save, and I'm going to name it, and we'll just call this Palm Tree 01. There we go. And I'm going to go and create a folder real quick. So I'm going to go to my art. I might have a folder for clip art already. We'll see. So I could create a little clip art folder. I might have one already. Custom clip art. There we go. And I'm going to put it in the custom clip art folder. And I'm just going to click on Save Design. Now, once I've done that, I have the opportunity to add it to an art approval, to send it off to a customer, maybe to say, hey, is this the kind of clip art you guys are looking for? Or I can just download it. And I can download this in one of three formats. If I just need a web graphic, I'm going to download the PNG file. If I'm just going to maybe create a virtual mockup in another program, maybe create a mockup in Canva or something of that nature, I could just download the PNG file. The background will be knocked out and it'll look great online. But it's not going to be a production-ready file because the resolution isn't quite up to production standards because this is a bitmap file. So let's download all three versions, and then we'll take a look at these. So we'll download that into my downloads folder. Here's the PNG. I'll download the PDF file as well. And then I'll download the CDR file. And so one of the things that you might notice that there's not a file that's being downloaded for Adobe Illustrator. All of the Adobe products can open up a PDF file just as easily as an AI file. And PDF is a generic format, so we chose to use the PDF format as a generic format that not only can the Adobe products open, but really any program capable of editing vector graphics can open as well. And that would be meaningful for somebody that was using a program like Affinity Designer or the freeware program Inkscape. So the PDF format is kind of the universal format. And you can open up the PDF file in Corel too. Let's open up all three of those files in Corel and kind of see what happens. So I'm going to go over here to File and Import. And we'll go to my downloads folder. Here's our three files. I'm going to highlight all three of them, and I'm going to hit import, and I'm importing them into a document. And every time I left click, it's putting the design in there. And you'll notice, if you can look in real closely, it tells me which one's the PNG. It says PNG right there. And also, if I highlight it down here in my status bar, it'll say PNG. And down here, it's a vector file. And then here's the original CDR.CDR. So it still retains the file name and extension. And let's do one thing real quick here. I'm going to hit F4 on my keyboard, just kind of zoom out. Let's go to wireframe view. In Adobe Illustrator, we would be going to what we call outline view. Same basic functionality in Illustrator as in CorelDRAW, just different terminology. And you can clearly see that these files are vector right here because you can see the vector lines and the outlines. And you can clearly see that this file over here is a bitmap, although you have a giveaway down here that says 72 by 72 DPI bitmap. So why did we do the lower resolution? Because people oftentimes want to be able to use a file they can send to a customer and say in the context of a mockup that isn't going to be full resolution. Because if I send a full resolution file over to the client, they have the opportunity to send that to another supplier. So it's still going to look great on screen, but it's just not going to be print resolution. If I zoom in here, you'll start to see some of the pixelation, but if I zoom back out, it looks awesome. So let's go ahead and delete the PNG file, and let's just kind of stay with the CorelDRAW version of the file here. And incidentally, here's all your color layers. See how we set this up in layers right here? So it's all grouped and layered, makes it really easy to edit these colors. That's actually the version of the file that's PDF, so we can do that. So there it is, and that's part of that production readiness. So the advantage of having the vector file is obviously the ease of editing, because it's really easy to edit and recolor these files because everything's set up in layers, but also scalability. Vector files are composed of lines and objects, means I could scale this up to a billboard size. It would be exactly the same quality as it would be on a pen. And that's one of the beautiful things about working with vector art. It's the math formula. And so what happens is the format itself tracks all of the drawing notes, positioning, colors, all the technical parameters of the file, and basically constructs it into a graphic when you bring it into a program. So it's basically reading out all the parameters and constructing it into a graphic. And if we want to take a closer look here, what we can do is ungroup the file, and we can look at the different drawing nodes. And you'll notice this file is actually created over the top of a background. So the first part of the file is a solid background, and I'll explain to you why that's really a nice thing to have in a second. But let's go to wireframe view again, and let's go and select the drawing nodes. And incidentally, these nodes will be exactly the same in Adobe Illustrator as they'll be in CorelDRAW. And you'll notice there's no intersecting paths. These nodes are nice and smooth. This is a very well-built and well-crafted file. If I wanted to get crazy and start moving things around, I could grab that drawing node and maybe make it pointier, or I could actually cut it off too if I wanted. Just double click on a node to get rid of it. Now it's a sharp point. So this is the flexibility that we have by virtue of two things. Number one, working with vector art. Number two, having an expertly crafted vector file built by our art design team, who's not only very technically proficient, but very talented. So because this file is constructed in layers, I have maximum flexibility for setting this file up. And meaning, if I was a screen printer and I wanted to underbase this right here with a white underbase, all I'd really have to do is just duplicate the file. And there we go. We'll just line this up with the other file. And I'll go over here to Object Manager, and I'll select that bottom layer. All I'd have to do is select this bottom layer, make it black, and give it a little bit of a white outline. And I've actually created a file that a white underbase underneath this whole thing. And that white underbase is slightly choked, meaning it's slightly smaller than the rest of the graphic because it's got a white outline on it. That's the manual way of creating an underbase. Now, if you're running the Smart Designer add-on software for Corel, it does that step automatically. But that's the way you would create an underbase with what we call a choke for screen printing. So by virtue of making that a solid object, I've given myself a lot more latitude, and let's go ahead and change the color so you can kind of see that. I've given myself a lot more latitude in terms of preparing this for production, and I'm going to delete that layer because we don't really need it. The other thing too is now if I choose to, I can punch objects through each other, and we could use the simplify function in Corel to punch objects through, and that will give us the latitude to delete objects or have set things up for what we call vinyl readiness. So by stacking things and building graphics in layers, I have a lot more production flexibility. And that's one of the reasons that we don't have objects that intersect on top of each other, because if we do, then if you were using a vinyl cutting process, they would actually cut through each other. So that is the basic process of setting up the artwork and kind of what sets our clip art apart from other clip art. It's production ready, so it's really easy to work with. So let's go back over to the Stock Art Customizer, and we're going to hit the back button, and get back to design ideas. So in the context of design ideas, I don't have to do editing in CorelDRAW or Illustrator, or even if you're using the Smart Designer add-on software for Corel. I very rarely use Smart Designer. And the reason for that is I'm not doing production or screen printing or, direct to film or DTG. I'm not having to really do a lot of manipulation on the graphics. And also I can do all of the things that I need in order to customize this graphic right directly in the GraphicsFlow application. I don't have to go anywhere else. I can do it right in GraphicsFlow. So if I wanted to take this template right here and modify this template, I can simply click on this, click on customize, and do all the changes right here. I can do this on my phone too. I don't have to go to an external graphics program. So you'll notice all of the components of the designer right here. So we'll just go over here and I'll type this in as central I right here, hit enter. And then where it says intramural, I'll kind of leave that there, but we're going to change tennis to soccer. Hit enter. And then where it says tournament, I'm going to change this to champs. And then 2024, boy, it snuck up on us kind of fast right there. Now that is a tennis ball. So what I want to do is replace that with a soccer ball. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on the little editing button right here. Click on edit. I'll click on replace, and then I'll just type in soccer. And once I find the ball that I'm interested in, I can just replace it. Now, this is an interesting graphic right here because it's an old school pixelated looking file. It's not a bitmap, that's actually a vector. It's made to look like a video game kind of a look here. So I just want a simple, clean, basic, kind of boring soccer ball. And I'll go down here and we'll find just that perfect soccer ball for this project. And got all kinds of neat back. Yep, there's your basic boring soccer ball right there. So we'll pop that into the graphic. I like it. So because I like it, I'm going to click apply. But if I wanted to click a different soccer ball just to see what it would look like, I could just click on the other one and it's going to replace as well. And then I would just finalize my decision by hitting apply. And then right here, you'll notice a couple things right out of the bat. Number one, there's a different set of colors, the 3 colors here, than there are in the main graphic. This would be a very smart place for you to combine colors and merge them, even though the final colors aren't going to be black, kind of rave green and purple. By merging the colors here, just makes it a little bit easier to get to my final color edit. So I would go over here and I would take the purple probably and make that, well, we'll make the black part here green. Actually, we're just going to merge that with green. We're going to do something a little bit different. Hit apply. And then the white part right here, we're going to keep that as white, but I'm going to take this gray and combine that with white as well. So now we've kind of reduced the colors down. I'm going to hit apply. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to view all layers and just recolor this for central high. So I'm going to go over here, click on the purple. We're going to make that navy blue, hit apply. I'm going to click on the rave green and I'm going to make that this nice little Pantone 123 athletic gold. There we go. If I want to change this to another color, maybe even make a variation of it that's red, I can do that. So I have the complete flexibility to do that. And I can go back in if I want to and change the soccer ball colors as well. So I have all that flexibility for creating this design without having to use an external graphics program. And I still have the ability, if to go in and bring this into Corel or Illustrator and make mods on it as well. We'll actually do that, kind of show you what we're talking about. So I like the graphic, fonts work. If I didn't like the fonts, I could go in here and pick a new font if I wanted to. I do like the font, so I'm not going to change the fonts because I like the fonts, but I have the ability to do that. But I'm going to cancel out of there. I can move objects around. So if I want to take this word right here and I want to move it up a little bit, or maybe make it just a slightly larger file. Something really important to kind of point out here is we're not in a design environment where we're selecting things and moving them around. We're actually editing this file on a server using a very powerful graphics engine and then updating the preview. So it's not like you can go in here and click around and move things around. We're actually doing this on server side. And the reason we do that is that we have this incredibly robust, powerful graphics engine that lets us edit the original file that was created in Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW in the cloud, as opposed to being confined by a simple vector-based engine. So this is a very powerful tool that's going on behind the scenes and supports all of the effects and colors and things that you can do in Illustrator or CorelDRAW. So things like weathered overlays, things like text on a path, because there's just text on a path here. It supports all of those native functions that are built into any file that you would create in Illustrator or CorelDRAW, and we're just updating the preview. So I like the file, looks pretty good. Let's see, Central Intramural Soccer 2024 Champs. I'm going to save the design now, and I'm going to put it back in that clipart folder, although I have a Central Cougars folder, so we're going to save it in there. And we'll just call this Central Soccer. And I probably have a bunch of those. We'll just say 08, and I'll save the design. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to download two of the formats. I'm going to download the PDF version real quick here, and then I'm going to download the CDR version. And then we're going to kind of talk about the differences in terms of editing capability on the CDR. So on the CDR version of the file, the text is going to be live because the file is being built in the native CDR format on the server. When we download the PDF file, we're converting that file to a PDF, and that way we can use it with the Adobe products as well as other vector graphics programs. But the original native file is the Illustrator file, and I'm going to go ahead and just click on Open, or if I wanted to, and if I was in a folder, I could just double click on it, and it's going to open the file. So either way works. Bear in mind, if I double click on it, the one thing that's going to happen is I'm going to be editing on the original file. So let's see how this file is built here and see what's kind of going on with the file. So let's go over here to wireframe view. See there, you can see that text on a path right there. You can see all the text is live. The fonts are already available for me to edit, install all the fonts. So they're embedded into the graphic, but they're also available as standalone fonts in Corel, which is great. If I want to go in here and make additional changes, I can do that. I have all the latitude to make that a little bit bigger. I just held my shift key down and I grabbed it at the corner that forced it to edit the file from the center out. And at this point, I have a production ready file. But let's say I want to set this up for screen printing. The way I would set it up for screen printing is one of two ways. If I was just running CorelDRAW by itself, and this would be the same in Adobe Illustrator, if I select a spot color palette, like Pantone matching system, and I recolor the design with spot colors, this file will already be color separated for screen printing. So you'll notice if I go to Window, Color Palettes, right here, and select the palette manager, that the color palette that I have selected over here is the Pantone matching system. And you'll notice that's the palette that I have selected in here. And that palette, as a result of being a Pantone spot color palette, if I recolor this design here, it will create spot color separations, meaning if I go to File and Print, I will get solid black images in the file. Now, I recolored this file in GraphicsFlow, and we're using a web palette that is RGB colors in GraphicsFlow because it's a web-based application. So if I want to spot color separate this, we need to convert the file into spot colors. And let me show you what separations look like. I'm going to go over here to File, Print. I'm going to click on Color, Separations, and then here's the colors in the file. You'll notice these are process colors right here, except for the white. The white in the file is Pantone because that was from the original file. Remember, we didn't really change the white. What I'm going to do is set this file up for production. So I could either manually recolor it just by virtue of going in here and dragging and dropping colors and selecting things. Type in 289. Neat little trick there. If you hold your shift key down and double click on a color, it'll let you type in the color name. Pretty awesome. And so we'll make that changed. And I think we pretty much have it except for this blue right here. And you'll notice Corel is kind enough to create a color palette of our file right here. So I'm going to purposely make a mistake in this file. We're going to go to Print and go to Separations. And you'll notice there's still some CMYK colors coming in here. And the reason for that is I didn't change one of the blues. So the intramural blue is still cyan, so it's not going to print out a solid black layer like the other colors in the design. See, these are all solid black. That's because they're Pantone solid colors, and they're in a spot color palette, meaning the color will be interpreted as a single black image if we print out separations. And that's also true in Adobe Illustrator. So that's why we want to convert these to a spot color, like the Pantone spot colors that we chose right there. So there's your separation. So how do I fix this? Just take the word intramural and recolor it to that blue. Or what I could do is, if I'm running the Smart Designer add-on software for Corel, I could go over into color management and then just simply click on convert to spot colors, and it will automatically convert those to Pantone spot colors. Then I can go over to modify colors right here. I can see the colors in the design. If I go over here to print now and look at my color separations right here, you'll see one solid black image for which color is that? That's the blue, one solid for the white, and one solid for the red. That's it. It's all ready to go for screen printing. If I was going to set this file up, and I was going to set it up for, say, a direct-to-film transfer, I'd want to convert this to a CMYK color palette. Some of the vendors will do that on their end. If you're working with somebody like Supacolor, they'll fix the art for you. But generally speaking, for direct-to-film printers, most of the vendors are going to want CMYK colors. So I'd have to pick a CMYK color palette, or in Smart Designer, I could go to convert to palette colors and then just convert the whole file to CMYK. Now, when I do that, you're going to get a significant color shift because the Pantone colors and CMYK colors have different gamuts of color that they're capable of producing. So generally speaking, I think it's easier to actually manually recolor this and just using a different palette. So if I go over here to Windows, Color Palettes, and just select the CMYK color palette, that's the default in Corel, and then just recolor this file using that default Corel palette, then I should get nice accurate colors in here. It's a little bit different in Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to open up Illustrator here real quick. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the PDF file that we downloaded. And we're going to open the PDF file right here. And same thing, here's the PDF file. I can take it, I can go in here, here's all the layers. I can go in and, use different colors and color libraries and change all the colors and, do all that kind of fun stuff. So I have all of the same capabilities of editing the file with one exception. The text is not going to be live. So when the PDF format was created, it took the text and it converted it into curves. So you can still change the colors of the text and move it and size it and do all that kind of fun stuff, but you're not going to be able to take the text and edit it. If you want to do that part of the editing of the text in the Stock Art Customizer first. But you still have all the same layers and you can move things around and manipulate the file. And you have that same level of editing capability in Illustrator that you had in Corel, just don't have the live text. PDF file format is going to be for the Adobe products, Illustrator, Affinity Designer, if you're using that. If you're using sign making program, you're using that. If you're using freeware program like Inkscape, PDF is going to be the way to go. And really the only program that you're going to use the CDR format for is CorelDRAW. So we have got our files all set up. So what I'd like to do is show you a little bit more of some of the advanced things you can do in the Stock Art Customizer by virtue of the recent update we did. If I go back to the Stock Art Customizer and I select a file that has a weathered overlay in it, I have the ability to manipulate that overlay. And so if I click on this file right here and I say customize, and I don't want to have the weathered overlay in the file, it's quite easy for me just to turn it off. And I'm going to turn on the little color wheel here so you can actually see the overlay now here. The overlay is in white. It's a bitmap that's sitting over the top of the file. And so as a result of that, you really couldn't see it. And so we added this ability to shuttle on the background color. And we also added the ability to shuttle on the background color here as well. So what I'm going to do is disable the weathered overlay. I'm just going to go over here and disable it. It's turned off. We don't have to have it. And I know this was probably our most requested feature, is the ability to turn off the overlay, because your software that you're using might not have the ability to work with that overlay, or frankly, you just don't need it for the graphic. You just like the graphic exactly the way it is. And something I'd like to point out here too, if I turn the overlay off, I can actually swap it. So if I go over here and select it as a piece of clip art, I can swap it and go over here and click on replace art. And if I type in overlay, there's overlays that are built right into GraphicsFlow. And so if I click on this overlay, it's going to place it over the top of the graphic. And then really all I have to do is change the color of the overlay. So we're going to go over here. I'm going to change the overlay color to white. And now you have your own custom overlay based on the one I replaced it to. Now that does bring up some other production related issues that you're going to have to deal with. But let's go ahead and take this file. We'll make a couple little changes in here. 2020. We don't really need that, so I'm going to turn that off. And turn that off. And we're headed to Long Beach in a short while, so let's change that to Long Beach. There we go. And let's save the design. So I'm going to save this design. I'm just going to put it in my custom clip art folder there. I'm going to save it. And again, I could download a PDF of the file, or I could download a CDR. So I'm going to, in this case, download a CDR version. It's going to go into my downloads folder. Probably wanted to name it something more exciting. I could do that later. And then I'm just going to click on the file to open this up into Corel. There we go. And you'll notice the weathered overlay in this particular situation is actually vector-based, I believe. Yeah, it is. It's actually a vector-based overlay. And that makes it a little bit easier to color. But here's something else you can do with this because it's vector-based. You could take this and you can make it a different color. So let's make it this fun blue color right here. And then what I can do is I can power clip it into, actually let's make it purple so it contrasts a little bit better. And I can actually power clip this into the graphic. So this is just a neat little curl thing. If I drag and drop that over the graphic and right mouse click, I can select the option for power clip. And I could power clip that design right into the graphic, any portion of it that I choose. I just put it into the magenta. So it creates a nice little effect. If you want to put it into the graphic as a whole, the thing you have to do is just make sure it's all grouped. So you want to take this, group it, and then take it and power clip it in. So just right clicking, holding down my right mouse button, releasing my right mouse button and clicking power clip inside. Some of these vector overlays are vector-based files, some are bitmaps, but they basically work relatively the same way. And in Corel, it's easy to go and power clip the file. If you're using Adobe Illustrator, you set it up as a transparency and you mask it in. It does exactly the same thing that Corel does. So that's the some of the advanced functionality we've added to GraphicsFlow with the recent update. The ability to turn off weathered overlays and the ability to change weathered overlays. And then last but not least, the ability to manipulate some basic bitmap images. So if I have a template here, some of our templates have bitmaps. So this is the same template as this, except this template has a bitmap in the file versus having a vector-based clip art. And in the past, you wouldn't have been able to manipulate the bitmap file or delete it or change it because it would just be unrecognizable. The software wouldn't pick it up. So that's another change we made. So if you want to go in here and put a different wolf in here, you can do that. And that's something that's new. Now, last thing I want to point out is if we create a template, and we created one template here, and I believe it is under custom clip art, is where we saved it. I can always go back and re-edit this template. So this template right here, it still has live text. It still has all of the features and functionality of the original template, but I can make a variation of this design. So provided I've saved it, all I need to do is either click on it to select it, or go down here and click Customize, and the design will open up right directly in the Stock Art Customizer. And then from here, I can go in and make changes. So let's say we just want to make this into a school design and get rid of that whole thing right there and put in a different mascot. We'll just put in a bear mascot. Why not? That one's kind of fun. So we'll drop a bear mascot in there. Looks good. So I want to apply that. And then I'm going to come over here and where it says catch a wave, I'm going to do name of a high school. Westview. Got to change both layers because it's a multi-layer text effect. And we'll go over to where it says spring break and change that to senior high. And then where it says Long Beach, we'll change that to Bears. So now we've completely changed the design. I could change the font if I wanted to. I could go down here to the little font drop-down list, and we could pick a different font. We'll do this American Purpose font right here. And we'll do that for the other layer as well. Hit apply. And same thing for senior high. So this is going to be a completely different looking design when I'm done with it. It'll look completely different just by virtue of changing the font, changing the clip art, and lastly, changing the colors. So now what I'm going to do is on the font size for senior high, I'm going to change that down to 85%. And we're going to do the same thing on the burgundy layer. And then I think bears, we want to make that a little bit bigger. Actually, doesn't need that, does it? Let's just take bears and turn it off. And then let's just set it up with school colors. So I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to grab the navy color. We'll leave that as blue. And then we're going to make this color right here blue as well. And let's take this color here and make it red. And then this color, this lighter color here, let's make that blue. And then the green, I think the green, we make that white. Let's see how that looks. And you notice I'm selecting colors from within the design. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. I think I could even make it even one fewer colors just by taking the gray and making it red. Yeah. There you go. So you have a completely custom high school design that started out as a resort design. In my opinion, the real beauty of the platform is to have that flexibility of just by changing fonts, just by changing clip art, to get something completely unique by virtue of a couple small modifications. And one of the things I really appreciate about GraphicsFlow is the barrier to entry for customizing is being able to type on a keyboard. There's no other barrier. You know, when people first get into apparel decoration and you take a class, even if you'd taken a class with me a few years ago, I would have told you you had to go and buy a professional graphics program to create pro-level production-ready files for apparel decoration or signage or awards. You don't have to do that. With the Stock Art Customizer in GraphicsFlow, anyone, regardless of their skill level and experience, can create very cool, progressive-looking graphics using templates and swapping out clip art and changing fonts that you don't have to go into an Illustrator or CorelDRAW to do that. Our work is now accessible to anyone, whether it's a front office person or a salesperson or a self-taught designer that happens to be you. You now have the ability to easily customize designs and get them in front of your customers without having to have that specialized skill set. And we're not taking anything away because you still can take these files into Illustrator or CorelDRAW and do advanced editing and preparation functions for your processes, but the basics of just modifying and customizing the stock designs is happening right directly in your GraphicsFlow account. And the best thing is you can do this on your phone and you can do this on your tablet. And I love showing people, especially when we're at trade shows, how easy it is to edit one of these files on my iPad. It's super easy to do that. And incidentally, if you want to get this file over to a customer, all you need to do is just click on Add to Art Approval, and then you just create a new art approval. Hit Create and Add Files, and set it over to an art approval. Oops, that's my portal. And just subscribe the customer to the file and set it over to them. They can click on the file, they can select it, they can approve it, they can reject it, and we can interact with the customer on that particular graphics file. So it's very easy to get ideas in front of a client. I had a demo with a client today that I was helping out, and he had asked me a question. He says, hey, listen, I have all these customers that have different colorways of the same graphic. It happens to be their logo. So they have their graphic on red, they have their graphic on blue, they have their graphic on light tones. And I said, you know, one of the things you could do with your GraphicsFlow account, if you signed up for GraphicsFlow, is you could add it to an art approval, change the background colors, and just label it. So all he would have really had to have done is, here, we'll just grab a couple files here. So if he had this file in different colorways, if we added this to an art approval, we can add the background color right directly in the product and then put the product description in here. And so I'm just going to add that to the colorways art approval. And then I'll go down here to art approvals, click on colorways, and this one will be colorway 1. And I'll put that on gray. And then I would just change the label and say colorway for gray. And then this one over here, I'm going to put that on black. And I know it's the same colorway. Put that on black though. And then just say colorway for black. And then all he has to do is subscribe his client to this by using the invite link. And the customer can easily go to that link anytime they want. I need the file name, eagle print, pennant, logo, SVG, gray on these colored shirts, and I need the black on these colored shirts. They have a visual reference. You just made it really super easy for your customer to see what their artwork looked like on different color backgrounds. So there you go. That's just a neat kind of supplementary use case for GraphicsFlow. So thank you so much for joining us on the webinar today, and we hope to see you again in the future.